Let me get back to this page down here. Well, all right. Well, all right. Let's see what we got here. Let me check something out real quick while I got y'all here. Oh, wow. All right, pay no attention to me, guys. I'm just over here messing around a little bit. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you may find yourself as you listen to this. And welcome to 2021. Anything interesting happened over the last couple of days? Hmm? Hmm? It's another episode of It's a Black and White Thing. I am your host, A1. You can call me Carlos. You can also call me Dan. You can check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing by going to your podcast app of choice, whether that be Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, Pocket Cast, and search for Brains and Bars to check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing. And it's a special day. It's 2021. It's a new year. And I'm just playing around a little bit, trying to knock the rust off. So when I decide to finally do this again, I won't be stumbling, fumbling, bumbling. Shout out to Chris Berman all over the place. Let's see. You can check out also. We are live on YouTube. If you go search for Brains and Bars on YouTube, you can find episodes. Not every episode of It's a Black and White Thing, but just since about quarantine, started going live on YouTube and doing shows and having some fun there. Shout out to the crew who, in their absence, is not here today. Shout out to the homie A Ward, one of the original and founding members of the podcast. You can check him out at iamaward.com. For all things A-Ward music, merch, battles. Speaking of battles, he has a battle going down tomorrow, Sunday, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern on King of the Dot on Twitch versus his YTG homie Ness Lee. Also, title match going down. Sharon versus Real Deal on that card as well. So if you are a fan of A-Ward, fan of Battle Rap, a fan of King of the Dot, check that out. Also going down today, shout out to the homie Loso. You can go to everythingloso.com for merch, music. I don't know if he has battles on his page. I'd assume he does. He is taking on Philly Hayes, and that is going down this evening on Bullpen Battle League on Caffeine. So shout out to the Four Horsemen there, getting busy this weekend doing the things in battle rap. Trying to think what else I need to I think that's about it for intros. So a couple of things. I'm not gonna be here too long, man. Like I said, I'm just on here just to mess around, just to see if I can get a feel for doing this again, if I want to continue to do this again. So I'm gonna talk about a few things as we get as we get ready for NFL playoffs, which kick off at noon. I believe the first matchup is the Colts and the Bills. Let me look at my list here, make sure I got that right. I believe that's the first game this weekend. It is Colts versus Bills first game this weekend. So we're going to talk about a few subjects here for the next 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how I feel. And if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome. I am live on, I believe, my personal Facebook page. I should be live on YouTube, and I believe I'm live one other place that I can't think of off the top of my head. So again, we're not going to rust off, right? We're just playing around, having a good time. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I want to start with college football and just college sports in general. This season playing college sports in the pandemic, I've always been an advocate that players should be paid, that players are not just student athletes, but they're actually employees of the university and should be compensated as much. And nothing has made that more aware, or nothing has made that more real than the pandemic. If you go back into the summertime, You had Mike Gundy, coach of Oklahoma State, saying that they needed to get athletes back on campus because they needed to play games and needed to get money flowing through the state. I think Mike Krzyzewski talked about with Duke. He ended up relenting, but at first he was not going to allow his players to go home for Christmas because they needed to stay there because they didn't want to expose them to coronavirus or COVID, which was essentially putting them in the bubble. A lot of colleges across the country have closed schools. If not for they close schools early, right, for the fall semester to get kids off of campus. They're going to schools more than likely are going to be opening the spring semester with in-seat a little later than normal because kids are going to be home for break. They're going to be out, but student athletes, again, were not allowed to have that same privilege and opportunity. And so these kids, nothing has made the fact that student athletes, that college athletes should be paid or actual employees than the pandemic. And you look around and you see what's happening with COVID and how it has wreaked havoc on this college football season. And I want to salute to the players. Salute to the coaches too. I can't leave them out. But salute to the players and the coaches for getting through this season and what has been a crazy season. If you watch college football or paid attention to college football, it has been wild to see how many games have been canceled, to see players who have been affected. Some people have even lost their lives. Some athletes have lost their lives after contracting COVID. And so I do want to salute them for being able to get through such a crazy season. And in college football, that is going to be culminated Monday with Ohio State taking on Bama in the national championship game. And, I want to say shout out, first of all, to Ohio State. I was critical of them. A lot of people were critical of them for the lack of games, which was not their fault, right? The lack of games that was played in the Big Ten. They struggled with Northwestern in the title game. They struggled with Indiana. Had some ups and downs of some other games that they ultimately prevailed and maybe won. The margin of victory was in excess of 10 points. But I think there was a lot of doubt about them taking on Clemson. And first of all, shout out to Justin Fields. Justin Fields was already going to be a multimillionaire once the NFL draft started in April. But I think that based on his performances to conclude the Big Ten season, including the Big Ten championship game, I think that his stock was falling. In most mock drafts, he was seen as the second player to come off the board, going to Jacksonville at first and then the Jets. But then as his stock fell, and the young man, Mr. Wilson from BYU, his stock rose. I think a lot of people, mock drafts had him going 8, 9, 10. And I think there was some questions about his ability and whether or not that it was simply the talent around him that allowed him to shine. And listen, homie took that hit from James Skalski. And I enjoy, let me say this about myself. I enjoy football. I enjoy playing football. I enjoy watching football. I cannot play football because you fold me with a hit like the one that Skalski put on Fields, and I'm done. I don't want to play no more. I don't want to play no more. You can't hit. They hitting too hard. Who told you could hit me like that? And so homie went to the sideline, wincing after every throw. He comes in, throws a touchdown pass right after missing the play. He's wincing while he's throwing the ball, wincing. He made himself a couple of $1 million because I think now there are questions based on that game, which, I don't know if there should be, between should Trevor Lawrence really be the number one overall pick, right? Because he's been kind of anointed that since his freshman season. But, shout out to the homie for enduring that pain. And then, listen, I'm going to talk about Bama here in a second, right? But I'm going to make a quick detour when talking about the playoff before I get into talking about Bama. So, the semifinal games, I'm a Notre Dame fan, been a Notre Dame fan since '89, Tony Rice and the crew, right? And there was a lot of talk when Notre Dame lost to Clemson in the ACC title game that they did not belong in the playoff, right? Everybody was saying Cincinnati, maybe Coastal Carolina, maybe A&M, but to Notre Dame's credit, they had the resume. They put together a good enough season that made them worthy of taking over that number 4 spot, right? So a lot of people crying and complaining, they don't deserve to be there. They're going to get blown out by Bama. they're going to get crushed. And I don't know if crushed is the word, right? Like if you look at what Bama did to say Texas A&M, right? A team that thought they should have been in that 4 spot. 52-26, I think was the final score. 52, 28, 24, something like that. Right. Notre Dame held Bama to its lowest point total of the season. Okay, so now I'm gonna move ahead to Bama here. Held them to 31 points, the lowest point total of the season. The lowest point total before that was 38 points against Missouri to open up SEC play, to open up their season. So the lowest point total for Bama this year was basically the first game of the season where they were still trying to figure things out, right? Because you didn't have spring practice. Fall camp was a bridge. It wasn't the normal fall camp. So 38 points, first game of the season. Every game after that, 40 points or more. And Notre Dame held them to 31, right? Defensively, Bama is not anywhere near to some of those other Bama teams that have played for championships and won championships, right? They have talent. They have first-round talent. They have talent that's going to be drafted day 1, day 2, day 3 of the NFL draft, right? So they have NFL talent on the roster, but it is not as good as those other defenses in previous years. That offense, however, I watched, what was it, 02 Miami or 03 Miami? I watched the USC with Lindell White, Reggie Bush, 05 USC. I don't know. I can't remember if Vince Young's Texas team was a scoring juggernaut that could be I don't think that is. That could be compared to those teams. Maybe the Tebow team in 07 and 08, right, with all the talent that was on that team and the points that they put up on people. This Bama team is offensively is worthy of inclusion with some of the greatest offensive teams ever in the modern era, right? Let me just say modern era, because I hate when people talk about of all time or the greatest ever when we really don't talk about anything before we were born. So of the modern era, of what I've seen in my lifetime, greatest offense I've ever seen. 3 Heisman Trophy finalists, right? Offensive linemen who are going to be drafted in the first round, if not the first round, maybe second or third round of the NFL draft. Unbelievable. So with that said, to kind of wrap it up on this college football segment, to me, Ohio State, they had a chip on their shoulder. They had something to prove. You had Dabo Swinney talking out of his head about Ohio State. He or someone on his staff ranked them 11th in the final coaches poll. They were motivated. They had reason to be motivated for this game, and they'll have reason to be motivated for this game against Alabama, right? COVID cases out the wazoo. They will have people missing on defense. They have people missing on defense for that game, and that's not good. Because, again, we're talking about one of the more prolific offenses we have ever seen, at least I've seen. So I do think Bama's going to win this game for that reason, right? Because of the people they're missing on offense, because of the fact that Bama's defense, while it's not top shelf Bama defense, it'll get the stops it needs. Plus, we don't know about the health of Justin Fields, how healthy he will be going into the game after taking that shot from Scalzi. So I got Bama winning another championship. Shout out to Nick Saban, the GOAT, maybe the greatest college football coach of all time, winning yet another national championship. Part of me hopes I'm wrong because, listen, I'm not anti-SEC guy, but I get tired of, SEC is the toughest conference in the country, yada, yada, yada. And like 3 teams have won championships in the last 10 years. So you got Bama, sometimes Florida, sometimes Georgia, sometimes Auburn, and then there's pretty much everybody else in a 14-team conference. All right. But yeah, I got Bama winning the game. Hopefully I'm wrong because I want Justin Fields to do well out there. So, all right. So let's jump into NFL. Let's jump in NFL because NFL kicks off in 20 minutes. NFL kicks off in 20 minutes, and it's going to be an interesting season, an interesting playoff season. I gave credit to the NFL or the college football, college sports in general for getting through this pandemic, playing through this pandemic. And man, listen, I don't know if I can say the same for the NFL. I enjoy the NFL. I guess I love the NFL. I don't know if I should use love in that way, but I enjoy watching NFL games. And when given how the NFL has handled administratively, right, such things as player punishments or investigations of teams, think Spygate, think the Colts and their fake noise that they were pumping in the state. Like the way that they handled things administratively gave me a lot of pause about whether or not this season would be able to happen successfully. And so maybe I have to give them credit for making it through the season. I got to give them credit for that, right? They made it through the season. They played all the games, even though that at times it was a bumbling, rumbling, stumbling process, right? Since we haven't had the show since the summertime. One of the things that I told my homies that they should have done prior to the start of the season, because there were reports of, hey, we're going to proceed through the season as normal. There were talks of, they had like 2 or 3 weeks where they could move the Super Bowl if they had to because of COVID. There was talks of a week 18 if they couldn't get a game played in a proper time frame and so on and so forth. So they made it seem that they had about a month of play time, which they could have moved things around to get every game played and get to the Super Bowl, right? And so my thing is, okay, armed with that, I guess, reporting, right, from those in the media, my thing was, hey, if that's the case, then use 3 of those weeks to say at the quarter mark of the season, so at the 4-week mark, the 8-week mark, the 12-week mark, the entire league takes a week off, right? Especially that would give you an opportunity if COVID cases are busting out the bando for a team. If they're putting numbers up on the boards and the game can't happen during that week, maybe you can get that game in, right? But it would try to give teams and personnel a reset. Chill out. And then, like I said, if we have any games we need to hit, we can do that and get the season going. So, they had a couple of major breakouts. The Titans had a major breakout. The Ravens had a major breakout. And now the Browns are having some issues where they've now lost Joe Bitonio, who's an all-pro guard. They've lost their coach, their head coach. Kevin Stefanski can't play. And for me, again, if I were Roger Goodell, and I had some talks with my homies, and they said, well, you can't change the rules now, right? I would push this weekend's games would not be happening if I were Roger Goodell. I would push them back a week to allow the Browns to get over try to get this COVID thing through their system. Hopefully that they can get Stefanski back, Bitonio back, get all of their players back, and get themselves prepared to play the Steelers, right? I would not postpone the playoff game and try to play it on Monday or Tuesday, because that is not fair to whomever won the Steelers, who have had the worst luck with COVID, right? Like they've been relatively COVID free, but have had at least 2 or 3 games postponed. And so, I thought that would be fair to them to try to get every team, make sure the schedule stays intact, push all these weekends games back a week. You can push the Super Bowl back a week and allow this COVID issue to settle. If I were a team who was one of these 14 teams who were in the playoffs, once we knew we were in, I would have put us in a bubble. I would have bought out a hotel and said, you and your family, they all get tested. They all stay in this hotel. We will take care of your food. We'll take care of everything, right? To try to keep things safe so that you don't lose a key player. Because can you imagine a world in which a playoff game, win or go home, is on the line? And I'm going to use quarterbacks because quarterbacks they're the stars, right? They're the marquee names that when you talk about these games, we're talking about Mahomes, we're talking about Brady, we're talking about Rodgers, right? Can you imagine a playoff game going down and the Chiefs don't have Patrick Mahomes because of not just COVID and living in Kansas City, knock on wood, not because of COVID, but just because of contact tracing, right? Like maybe it's in the quarterback room And now Mahomes has got to sit out this game because he might have it. Or Rodgers, or Brady, or Breeze. I'm going to throw Roethlisberger, like any quarterback, Josh Allen. Can you imagine a Super Bowl? Let's just say Chiefs Packers. I don't even know who the backup, I guess, is it Jordan Love? A Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Packers, and you go, well, Rodgers and Mahomes have tested positive for COVID. They can't play. So now it's the Super Bowl featuring Chad Henne versus Jordan Love. Like, come on, fam. And the thing that concerns me with the NFL is that if they don't get this under control, or if this game is played now, who knows if the Browns can beat the Steelers even at full strength? I don't know. Right? They had a win or go home game in week 17. They had to hold on to win that game, and they were relatively at full strength during that game. So who knows if the Browns, if they had everyone available, both coaching and Gar and Bitonio and players, if they could beat the Steelers at full strength on the road, right? But the risk you run with just kind of trying to steamroll through the season, which is what the NFL has done. They've just tried to steamroll through everything. COVID, what, right? As players are dropping left and right, not being able to play. Some, having to miss the entire season. Raquel Armstrong had to quit. He had been hospitalized twice with COVID. Like, they're just basically said COVID what, COVID who, and just try to steamroll through the system. Well, now that we're in the playoffs and listen, every game matters in the NFL, but we're talking about lose and go home. You run the risk because the NFL is being so inflexible of players or people wanting to assign an asterisk to a season, right? And we've had that in other sports, right? The NBA, because LeBron, and really it's because LeBron wanted to attach an asterisk to the season. There was a little bit of the talk with that because of the way the MLB put things together, but no one seriously entertained those discussions, right? But if you have if you start losing major players, right? So no Devontae Adams, no Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, we don't know if he's going to be able to play come this weekend because of COVID, right? If you start losing major names and major players on the offense and defensive line that are not household names but are critical to the success of their teams, people are going to start throwing around this championship comes with an asterisk. So we'll see what happens in Cleveland, in Buffalo, or in Pittsburgh Sunday night, whether or not the game gets played. I've been really hard on the Steelers. I've called them frauds, and then maybe frauds was a little bit too harsh. They're a good team, right? They're a good team, but I think that again, this was a team that was impacted by COVID incredibly. And I think some of that resulted in their slide that happened late in the season. Listen, that 3-game stretch where they lost to Washington, they lost to who was the second team they lost to? Lost to Washington, they lost to Buffalo. There was one more game they lost where I can't remember the team that they lost to. Right, that 3-game slide, that was 3 games in 11 days for them. And so, I want to be fair to them. And 3 games in 11 days for an NFL team is crazy. It's nuts. And so I wouldn't want even like the Seahawks. I'm a Niners fan. Seahawks are my mortal enemies. I wouldn't wish that on them and that bum Russell Wilson, right? But 3 games in 11 days, they had a slide, and they were able to bounce back and beat the Colts, who I didn't think was going to happen. So they rested most of their starters in week 17. They're going to be healthy going into this game relatively, right? I got the Steelers winning the game. I just don't think the Browns, losing your head coach who's also your play caller, losing, and it's not just Stefanski, right? Like they've lost like a tight ends coach, like losing all these people. It puts a burden on others to try to step up and multitask. And listen, as someone who has advocated for the NFL to hire a Madden game coordinator, I would not wish that on anybody. And we'll talk about that next time I'm on live. But I got Pittsburgh winning that game. So let's jump into Cincinnati, who they lost to. Was the 3rd game Pittsburgh lost to. Let's jump into the game that's actually going to be starting here in 10 minutes. Cincinnati on the brain. Buffalo and Indy. So I want to give Buffalo and Josh Allen some love here, right? Buffalo, is considered one of the most considered one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs right now. They won 5 or 6 straight. They've been blowing teams out. Josh Allen has been on not either. He's been in multiple standalone games to end the season, right? He's played on Saturday afternoon. He's played on Monday night, Sunday night. And so in these like national showcases, he's played really well to close the season. And so, he's jumped back into, well, maybe maybe he should be, receiving MVP votes, right? Regardless of the fact that he had a stretch where he stunk. Okay. Right. So, the team has played really well and they're considered one of the hottest teams. People are considering them a dark horse to win the NFC, AFC, considering them having them a chance to knock off the Chiefs, even though they lost to them at home in a rainy game back in October, I believe it was. And I want to credit them for that. If I had to have an upset pick, though, I'm taking Indy. Because here's the thing. We are reactive when it comes to sports, right? Everything is the greatest thing in the moment. Everything is the hottest thing of all time, greatest thing of all time. However, and I said this to one of my homers, I said, you got to consider who they've played during that stretch, right? So the Bills, again, a good team, have been playing well. But down the stretch, after they lost to the Cardinals, here's what they played to close out their season. To go on this, I think it's a 5-game winning streak or 6 games. The Chargers, the 49ers, the Steelers, again, who are playing their second game in like 6 days. The Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins, who were playing a quarterback in Tua who was in over his head at this point of his career, right? I'm looking at 2 teams over 500. The others were bums. And this is where I would give the Bills credit, right? They have done what people want Kansas City to do to teams every week, which is beat them up, blow them out, win handily. No having to make a final stop on 4th down, no final drive comeback. So they deserve credit for that. But how many good teams have they faced? Now, if I'm wrong, I will show up here on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, and say, hey, I got this wrong, I screwed up. The Bills they're a solid team. But I think that the Colts have a defense that can slow Josh Allen down. They're one of the best defenses in the league. They have a defense that can slow Josh Allen down. And Phillip Rivers is going to do just enough. I should not trust Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has not given me any reason to trust him in a playoff game or a big game. But I'm going to give Phillip the benefit of the doubt. Their running game has been really good. They have a really good offensive line. And the Chiefs were able to run against them easily. And their offensive line is not anywhere as good as the Colts. Now, granted, the Bills were missing some players, key interior linemen. I think they were missing linebackers during that game. And the way they played, the Chiefs kind of made it conducive for running. However, upset special of the weekend. You heard it here. Colts over the Bills. All right. I'm going to go through these rest of these games, and then I'm getting up out of here. So let's see what else we got on the docket for games. The second game of the triple header, Rams versus Seahawks, we don't know if Jared Goff is going to play. And unfortunately, this puts me in the uncomfortable position to take that bum, Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks to win the game because I just don't know about the QB situation. And even if Jared Goff plays, I don't have faith that he'll be able to play well enough to win in Seattle. And then lastly, Buccaneers at Washington. I got the Buccaneers in a blowout. I think Washington's, their offense, they have no quarterback, right? I mean, Ron Rivera is talking about running out multiple quarterbacks during the game. Like, this is not college, fan. Unless the Buccaneers completely implode, which I don't see that happening, I think they should win by at least 10 points, maybe more. Sunday, Ravens and Titans, man. This is the other team that's been getting a lot of love as being one of the hotter teams in the AFC going into the playoffs. And I'm going to take the Ravens. And even though this is I think a 3-6 matchup, I don't think this is an upset. I think the Ravens, again, they've been in playoff mode since Thanksgiving. And I think they are going to win this game. Lamar Jackson is going to get his first win in the playoffs. And I think they'll beat the Titans, who defensively are not what they were a year ago. Bears over Saints. I got the Saints winning handily, even though they may not have any of their starting running backs. We'll see about Kamara. I haven't heard yet. And then I've already given you Browns Steelers. All right. So that's my wild card predictions one upset, and then one lower seed defeating a higher seed that I don't consider an upset. So I want to close out on this, right? NBA's back. And shout out to basketball being back. I've missed basketball. I haven't uh, been able to play basketball and probably, I mean, I hadn't played before COVID hit, and I haven't had a chance to play since COVID hit, and I miss playing basketball. I love watching the game. And listen, the game with no fans kind of gives it even that rec feel because you can hear people hollering instructions and switch and go here and go there. So that makes it kind of cool for me. So I was on Facebook scrolling, and one of my friends had a post they put up saying, these four players are the most influential players of kind of like the modern era, right? So there was Jordan, obviously. There's Kobe, there's LeBron, and then there's Steph Curry. Now, I think three of those four names are no-brainers. Absolutely no-brainers. First ballot, all influential of the modern era. There's one name that I just was like, man, you're missing someone. And the person that's missing from that list of being the most influential in the modern era is Allen Iverson. And the name that needs to be removed, I can hear the LeBron haters going, say LeBron, say LeBron, say LeBron. No, it's Steph. And shout out to Steph. He's an amazing player, right? He's been on an amazing run since Damian Lillard talked that trash about him. However, if we're talking about influence on the game, and I'm not just speaking strictly the game play, the style of play, the dribbling. I'm talking about everything that comes with the game. What you wear, how you look. Allen Iverson is the father of at least three things that is seen as commonplace in basketball now. That is braids, that is headbands, that is shooting sleeves. Oh, and tattoos. Oh, and if you want to talk about something that he brought to the game, the crossover. Oh, if you want to talk about music, hip hop, right? Like all of these things, Allen Iverson is the father of. Like, or he was the reason this thing was ushered in. So if you want to talk hip hop, the Fab Five, they opened the door with their baggy shorts, their embrace of hip hop. These are, their style, their swag, right? Allen Iverson kicked the door down. We're not going to talk about his run as Jules, but I mean, just in general, think about the Jadakiss Reebok commercial, right? Think about hip hop music being used to sell shoes in commercials, right? We talked about the crossover. Tim Hardaway was probably the most recognizable name when it came to most famous crossovers, right? With the killer crossover. But when Iverson brought his crossover and when he crossed Jordan up in their first meeting, everybody, and this is prior, people when he was at Georgetown, people were trying to emulate that crossover. The braids. Granted, maybe other people did it before him, but he made it popular. The shooting sleeve. That was an Allen Iverson signature that people do. The headband, that was an Allen Iverson signature. Now, granted, people had worn headbands before him, but they made it a hot line. He made it a hot song. And so when I look at those things, and then when you look at the shoes, the questions, the answers, like when you look at the shoes, iconic, still reselling today, right? I love Steph Curry. Incredible player. Incredible. He made shooting deep threes a thing. And yes, there are people who are coming behind him who do that. But that is the thing that he didn't so much as reshape the game in that way. And just the fact that we are marveling at an individual who is a one of one in his uniqueness. Granted, there are other people who can shoot deep, but not necessarily with the same accuracy. Dame Lillard comes close. I think he's really the only one who comes as close as being as accurate from deep as Steph. So yes, he popularized that. People, when I posted this on the Brains and Bars Twitter page, people tried to say, well, they want to give him credit for teams shooting as many threes as that. And I'm like, no. That's not what happened. Teams analytics was already pushing teams toward the three-point line. Like the 3-and-D player was a thing prior to Steph, right? I think it's the 08 Magic who made it to the finals Granted, they weren't all small ball because they had Dwight Howard, but they were a team that was centered around a big man and shooters. Right. So this is the We Believe Warriors who defeated the Mavericks when they were the number 1 seed, were a small ball group. Like this isn't, the death lineup wasn't some new innovation that was brought to the game back in 2015. They were one of the more efficient groups, right, when they were deployed, but this isn't some new innovation. So Steph, yes, he made shooting deep threes a thing. I'm about to get off of here. I'm just messing around. He made shooting deep threes a thing. He made, he helped became the face of the 3-point revolution and probably pushed teams to shooting more threes league wide. But there's only one Steph Curry. There were, at the time, at their height, there was only one Warriors team. Everyone else was trying to play catch up. And to this day, I feel like the only team who has really tried to truly emulate what they've done were the Hawks, who got Trae Young, right? And I think Kevin Huerter was supposed to be their Klay Thompson, right? They've tried to rebuild what the Warriors have done, in part because the executive for the GM for the Hawks is from the Warriors system. So y'all let me know what y'all think, man. Who's more influential, Steph Curry or Allen Iverson, when we talk about the game of basketball? And by game, I mean culture, not just gameplay, but the culture of basketball, how we think about basketball, what we see when we watch basketball. Y'all let me know what y'all think, Steph or AI. Y'all hit me up at Brains and Bars on Twitter. Search for Brains and Bars on Facebook to find the It's a Black and White Thing fan page. Thank you to the people who continue to like the page, even though I don't post any content. I have not done a video in a long time. In the absence of my homie A-Ward, I am award.com. This weekend goes down Nestle versus A-Ward, YTG versus YTG on King of the Dot on Twitch. That starts at, I believe it is 3 Eastern. This afternoon, 5 Eastern this evening. Bullpen Battle Leagues, everything Loso.com. Loso versus Philly Hayes on Bullpen Battle League on live on Caffeine. Check out the battles. The game just started. First of all, I'm a Niners fan, so who lives in Kansas City? That's you want to talk about pain. Anyway, I'm about to get off of here. Some of my uncles will stop roasting me for being live during a game that probably just kicked off. I'm gonna get off here. Again, remember, you can check every episode of It's a Black and White Thing by going to the podcast app of your choice. You can find us when we do record, going live on YouTube. Go check out all of our episodes there. Listen, we got an episode with Mike Watson that has one of the funniest sports stories I've ever heard in my life, featuring Stephon Marbury and Tony Allen. I encourage you to go find that episode and check it out. We were talking The Last Dance on that episode. And go to Twitter search at Brains and Bars and check out the content there. That is where I'm most active. Until next time, I will see you. Everyone else, y'all be safe out there, and I will holler at y'all. I might see how I feel. I might come back Tuesday, man. We'll see. But anyway, man, y'all be easy. I holler at y'all. Till next time, it's been a Black and White Thing. Peace.